What happens when you stop reacting to a narcissist? Not when you block them. Not when you announce that you're done. Not when you send one final angry message. But when you genuinely stop giving them the emotional reaction they used to get from you. You stop arguing. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending every decision. You stop checking whether they're watching your stories. You stop responding to every provocation. And eventually, something changes. The person who once knew exactly how to get under your skin suddenly can't get the same reaction. The person who could make you spend hours explaining yourself suddenly gets silence. And the person who once seemed to have so much power over your emotions may begin to realize that their access to you is disappearing. But what exactly happens when you stop reacting? Why can your silence change the dynamic? And does ignoring a narcissist actually make them change? In this video, we're going to break down what may happen when you stop reacting to someone with strong narcissistic traits, and why the most important change may actually be happening inside you. And stay until the end, because the final point is the one that can completely change how you think about emotional detachment. The first thing that may happen is simple. They notice. If someone is accustomed to getting a strong emotional reaction from you, your behavior suddenly becoming different can be very noticeable. Maybe you used to respond immediately. Now you take your time. Maybe you used to argue when they insulted you. Now you don't engage. Maybe you used to ask where they were. Now you don't ask. Maybe you used to explain yourself for hours. Now you simply say, "Okay," and move on. That change can create uncertainty, because the old pattern is no longer working the way it used to. But there's something important here. Don't stop reacting because you want to make the other person panic. Don't become silent as a manipulation tactic. If your entire goal is to make them chase you, you're still emotionally connected to their reaction. The real goal is different. You're taking your attention back. Once the usual reaction disappears, they may test whether you still care. This could be very obvious. They might send a message. They might ask a question they already know the answer to. They might bring up an old memory. They might suddenly become friendly. Or they might make a subtle comment designed to provoke you. Sometimes the test is incredibly small. A simple, "Hey," or "How have you been?" And you may immediately wonder, why are they contacting me now? But the more important question is, what happens if I don't give them the reaction they're looking for? If you remain calm, you may notice that the interaction doesn't have the same power anymore. And that's important, because emotional control doesn't disappear because someone stops talking to you. It disappears when their behavior stops controlling your internal state. This can be one of the most confusing moments. Imagine someone who used to criticize you, dismiss you, or constantly create conflict suddenly becoming extremely pleasant. They may compliment you. They may ask how you're doing. They may remind you of the good times. They may say, "I don't want us to fight anymore. I just want peace. I've been thinking about everything. I miss the person we used to be." And sometimes that change may be genuine. People can reflect. People can recognize their mistakes. People can change. So don't automatically assume that every positive interaction is manipulation. Instead, observe what happens over time. Do they respect your boundaries? Do they take responsibility? Do they stop blaming you for everything? Do they remain respectful when you disagree? Do they behave differently when they don't get what they want? Because real change isn't proven by a beautiful conversation. It's proven by consistent behavior. If being nice doesn't work, another reaction may appear. They may become more provocative. They may say something they know will upset you. They may criticize your appearance. They may question your choices. They may bring up another person. They may post something online that seems deliberately designed to get your attention. And you might feel an immediate urge to respond. You might think, "I'm not going to let them talk to me like that. I need to defend myself. They need to know the truth." But pause. Ask yourself, what will responding actually accomplish? Will it solve the problem? Will it change their behavior? Will it protect your peace? Or will it simply restart the cycle? Sometimes the strongest response isn't a clever comeback. It's refusing to participate. Another possible reaction is an attempt to trigger jealousy. Suddenly, you may see pictures with someone new. They may appear happier than ever. They may post about how amazing their life has become. They may suddenly show a lifestyle you never saw before. And your mind can start racing. Did they replace me? Were they happier without me? Why didn't they treat me like this? But remember something important. Social media is a presentation, not a complete biography. You don't know what happens behind the picture. And even if they genuinely are happy, their happiness doesn't reduce your value. Your healing cannot depend on whether someone else is struggling. If you need another person's life to fall apart before you can feel good about yours, you're still emotionally connected to them. The goal is to reach a point where their life is simply their life. Sometimes direct access becomes difficult, so communication may become indirect. A mutual friend might suddenly mention them. Someone may tell you, they were asking about you. They said they miss you. They want to know how you're doing. Or they may suddenly appear in a shared social environment. This can make you feel like you're being pulled back into the story. But you don't have to participate simply because someone else brings the story to you. You can say, I'd rather not discuss that, and move on. You don't have to investigate. You don't have to ask what they said. You don't have to find out whether they are dating someone. And you don't have to send a message through the same person. Because sometimes the healthiest boundary isn't just, I won't talk to them. It's, I don't need updates about them either. When a relationship ends badly, there can be a strong temptation to defend yourself. You want everyone to know what happened. You want people to understand your side. You want to correct every false statement. And sometimes, protecting yourself or correcting harmful misinformation is necessary. But you don't need to spend the rest of your life defending your character. Someone may tell a completely different version of the relationship. They may leave out important details. They may describe themselves as the victim. They may blame you for everything. And you may feel the urge to respond to every accusation. But here's something powerful. You don't have to win every argument to move forward. The people who genuinely know you will judge you by your character over time. And the people who have already decided to misunderstand you may not be convinced by another explanation anyway. Sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is simply refusing to continue a conversation that has no productive destination. This is where the dynamic can change most dramatically. You used to spend hours thinking about what they said. Now you move on. You used to reread their messages. Now you delete them. You used to wonder, why would they treat me this way? Now you ask, why am I still giving this situation so much of my attention? That's a completely different mindset. You are no longer trying to control them. You're controlling what you give your attention to. And that's where emotional detachment begins. Because emotional detachment doesn't mean you suddenly feel nothing. You may still feel hurt. You may still miss them. You may still remember the good moments. You may still become angry sometimes. Healing doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means your emotions no longer dictate every decision. This is an important question. And the honest answer is not necessarily. Your silence does not magically transform another person. You cannot heal someone by withholding attention. You cannot make someone develop empathy by going no contact. You cannot force accountability by refusing to argue. What you can do is change your participation in the pattern. And sometimes, that's enough to completely change your life. Instead of, you hurt me, explain why. You can say, this behavior isn't acceptable to me. Instead of, please understand how much you've hurt me. You can say, I've decided what I'm comfortable with. Instead of trying to convince someone to respect you, you create boundaries and act on them. That's where your power is. Here's the biggest mistake people make after discovering this concept. They stop reacting, but they continue watching. They stop replying, but check their social media every day. They stop calling, but ask mutual friends about them. They stop arguing, but spend hours imagining what they would say if they could. Technically, they're no longer reacting outwardly. But internally, the person still occupies their entire mind. That's not complete freedom. That's silence on the outside and emotional attachment on the inside. Real healing requires gradually reducing both. Stop monitoring. Stop searching. Stop checking. Stop trying to decode every post. Stop wondering who they're with. Stop trying to predict what they'll do next. Because every minute spent monitoring someone is a minute you're not investing in your own life. So what do you actually do when you stop reacting? You redirect your attention. Build routines that don't involve them. Reconnect with people you trust. Focus on your work. Learn something new. Exercise. Travel if you can. Take care of your environment. Set goals that have nothing to do with the relationship. And most importantly, stop measuring your healing by their reaction. Don't ask, have they noticed that I'm gone? Ask, have I noticed that I'm becoming myself again? That's the question that matters. And if they eventually come back, you don't have to panic. You don't have to immediately forgive them. You don't have to immediately reject them either. You can pause. You can observe. You can ask questions. You can look at their history. And you can decide based on what is healthy for you. If there are shared children, work responsibilities, finances, or other unavoidable connections, complete no contact may not be realistic. In those situations, structured and limited communication may be more appropriate. And if the relationship involved abuse or you feel unsafe, prioritize your safety and seek appropriate support rather than confronting the person simply to prove a point. The objective isn't revenge. The objective is protection and peace. Here's what I want you to remember. The biggest consequence of stopping your reaction isn't necessarily what happens to the other person. It's what happens to you. You become calmer. You become more selective about what deserves your attention. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop confusing intensity with love. You stop thinking that every message deserves an answer. You stop believing that closure must come from the person who hurt you. And eventually, you realize something. You don't need them to understand your value anymore. You understand it yourself. So what happens when you stop reacting to a narcissist? They may notice. They may test you. They may become nicer. They may try to provoke you. They may try to make you jealous. They may contact other people. They may even try to rewrite the story. But none of that should become the reason you change your behavior. Because your goal isn't to make them react. Your goal is to stop allowing their behavior to control your life. Don't stop reacting to make them chase you. Stop reacting because your peace is worth more than another argument. Don't stop checking their profile because you want them to wonder where you are. Stop checking because your life deserves your attention. And don't become emotionally detached to punish someone. Become emotionally detached so you can finally become fully present in your own life again. If this video helped you understand something you've been experiencing, subscribe to the channel for more videos about narcissistic relationships, emotional manipulation, boundaries, healing, and relationship psychology. And if you haven't watched our previous videos, start with Why Narcissists Come Back When You Finally Stop Caring and Things Narcissists Do When They Realize They've Lost Access to You. Because once you understand the pattern, you can stop living inside it. And remember, your healing isn't measured by whether they miss you. It's measured by whether you finally stop abandoning your own peace.